Welcome to our posts. Today, we will see stories of r/malicious compliance. I want it like this. I'm the boss. You do it how I say. Sure. Context: I work in flooring installation, commercial mostly, usually carpet or vinyl tiles. Have been doing this for 10 years now. I got a work order to do a head office for a large developer. It was carpet tile, but with a pattern lines border. I start installing, and just as I get the first tiles out after laying the glue, the big boss comes out. He says I'm doing it wrong. I was absolutely stunned. I looked at him, looked back at the tiles I had just put down, looked at him again and asked, "What?" "Those numbers on the back of the tile are the sequence order. You need to follow the numbers," he replied. What he is talking about are God knows what. Part #S, serial #S, lot #S. They have nothing to do with installation, so if I actually followed whatever he was saying, it would look like a mess, not the intended pattern. I tried explaining this to him, but he wouldn't have it. He got frustrated and called the head office, who in turn called me and said to just do it how he wants it. So I did. As I'm finishing up, he comes back, takes one look at it, and says, "I don't like it." I smiled and said, "I don't care, that's how you wanted it." Packed my stuff up and left. He didn't say another word to me. Few days later, I hear that he called the head office asking for someone else to come redo it the way I had originally intended to install it. So the office sent me again, and I got paid to remove the work that I just got paid to install so I can get paid to install it again. Needless to say that he didn't come out to make small talk the second time. Next story. Just put some salt in it. When I was young, think 5-6 years old, my parents had a "don't leave the table unless you've eaten all your food" rule. I was picky and I hated tomatoes. My mom would often make the rest of the family grilled cheese and tomato soup, but I would get chicken noodle. On this day, there was no chicken noodle, so I got canned tomato soup. I told my mom before she served that I only wanted the grilled cheese. Honestly, a sandwich and a bowl of soup was too much for my tiny body anyway. She gave me both anyway. I moaned and groaned about how gross the soup was for a while. My mom told me not to get up until I finished my food, so I stayed at the table. An hour later, my mom walked in and found me still at the table. She asked why I was still there, and I reminded her that I wasn't allowed up until I eat, and I didn't like the soup. She told me, "Just put some salt in it." Well, I was young. I didn't know the difference between salt and sugar, so I made an educated guess. My mom put a bit of the stuff in the white bowl into my cereal in the morning to make it taste better. That must be salt. I poured several teaspoons of salt into my soup. It was still gross. Okay, it must be the other one. I kept adding salt and tasting until the shaker ran out. The soup was even more gross. Gee, I wonder why. My mom came back in after another hour and again asks why I'm still there. I said, "I tried adding salt, it didn't help." After 2 hours of refusing to eat the soup, my mom finally excused me. As I was leaving the kitchen, my mom shrieks and asks what I put in my soup and what is all this goop at the bottom of the bowl. I just told her, "You said to put some salt in it." Next story. You want me to be more socially active? Got it. I'm from an Asian country and I've been living in a foreign country for some time and purchased my home here a few years ago. My hobby is play computer games, watch TV shows, and I've spent a decent amount of money to set up my home for it. I have the fastest internet plan, subscription to all major streaming services, etc. My daily life is work, then grocery shopping, then home gaming, every single day. My parents came at the beginning of the year to live with me as they want to experience the foreign life. They were disappointed when they found out their son does not have an active social life here and spend all his free time at home gaming. They tried to make me more socially active by telling me what events are happening that I can go to, and how they've been going out every day and made lots of new friends. Well, not really. I know they only go to 2 places: the shopping center for grocery or the local community center where there are a bunch of retired people from our home country. My parents don't speak English. I don't even think they know how to use the public transport here. Telling me to go out and socialize has become the topic of our dinner talk every night, and the tension, especially between me and my dad, has become more and more hostile. One night when they mentioned it again, I decided I've had enough. So I started to be more socially active by staying at internet cafe until 11:30 p.m. every day. I also canceled the internet at home. They found out the internet is not working at home and notified me. I acknowledged it. They asked me, when is the internet coming back? I said it's not coming back. What? Why? Because I'm socializing every day. When I come home, I go to bed right away. When I wake up, I either go to work or go out socializing. I barely use internet at home, so why do I need it? 2 weeks later, Mom tells me they are going back home. Next story. If you don't eat the veggies, you don't eat. Okay. Not sure this really counts as mech, but figured it's at least worth a somewhat horrified laugh. When I was maybe 4, my brother 6-ish at the time, and I were dropped off at our aunt's house for the weekend. Mom and Dad dropped us off Friday afternoon after lunch, with plans to pick us up Sunday night after dinner and take us straight home to bed. We loved these sleepover weekends because Aunt had game consoles, board games, a massive playground in the condo complex, a huge pool, and best of all, bunk beds. Friday night, my brother and I discovered that Aunt requires her kids don't remember their ages exactly, but F was probably about 5 years older than me at the time, and M was only a couple years younger than her to eat a full bowl of veggies before they're allowed the main course. Friday night was a bowl of green beans, unseasoned, bland, steamed, soggy green beans before spaghetti and meatballs and chocolate cake. I hated veggies by themselves and refused to eat the green beans. I refused them at dinner. I refused them at breakfast. I refused them at every single meal all weekend until my parents showed up to pick us up to find me vomiting water, because that's all she'd let me have. Now, my parents would often save uneaten, refused Vegas food for the next meal. But if we refused it 2 meals in a row, the next meal would be different. Aunt refusing to feed me for over 48 hours was completely unacceptable, and my parents never let us stay at her house without them ever again. Bonus, a few weeks later my mom made green beans, seasoned well, and mixed in with some rice, peas, and other goodies, and I practically scarfed it down. Mom called Aunt from the kitchen wall phone 20,000,000-2001 and told her all you had to do was put them in some damn seasoned rice. I still don't like most veggies by themselves, but there are a few I'll eat alone as long as they're cooked and seasoned well. Next story. Only do my own duties. You got it, boss. I used to work in a workshop where sheds were produced for farms and businesses. I was brought on as a general laborer whose tasks were to clean and maintain the yard and workshop, clean and spray steel, and to load up the truck with any completed sheds. When I first joined the company, there was 3 other workers there who had their own jobs to complete. One person's job was to make flashings for the sheds. One person would run the saws and fabricate any plates and cleats needed, and then there was a welder. Slowly but surely, the other workers began to quit due to finding better paying jobs in different companies, and eventually I was the last worker there who had to run everything by myself, which I had no issue in doing as I preferred to be able to work by myself. So one day I needed welding wire, and normally it would have been the boss's job to go and pick up any materials or supplies I needed, but on this day the boss was away delivering a shed, so I went out of my way to go and pick up the welding wire myself so I could get a job finished that was behind schedule. But issues arose when I informed the boss that he needed to pay me back for the wire as I had to pay for it out of pocket. But I was told that I shouldn't be doing anything that's not written in my contract and that I won't be getting the money back for the wire as he never agreed to pay for it. So I went back to my original duties that I had when I first joined the company. After a few days of this, he came into the yard screaming at me as there was no sheds being manufactured, and I told him that he better get hiring as I won't be doing anything out of my job's description like he stated for me to do. After 2 weeks of this, he hired a new worker who had no idea how to do anything, and he tried to get me to train him, but I wouldn't as that was going out of my job's description. This went on for about 3 weeks before the company ended up going into liquidation due to the boss failing to file accounts for the past 4 years. Next story. I must take the full time to complete a task or I get penalized. Okay, freeze social media time. For the longest time, my job has allowed us to take the full pay for completing work even if we finish early. For context, I am assigned a zone, and I complete all jobs assigned to me in that zone by a time limit. At many different locations, I check in via GPS tracker to prove I'm at the location. They pay me mileage, and I make my own schedule. Each job has a time assigned to it. Previously, they've always allowed us to claim the extra time. If I'm given an hour to complete something and finish in 45, I claim the hour. Our managers have always said this is fine, saying if we are turning in good work and we are skilled enough to complete it faster than most, we should not be paid less for it. All enforcing that would do is encouraging people to work slow as possible or waste time. And it does. Now they say we need to use the full allotted time or take the cut in our check. One big problem is we are given way too much time. It's common for me to be given an hour to do something that takes 10 minutes tops. My colleagues are not ashamed to admit they all run the clock. Thinking it's crap, they should be paid less than people who don't know what they are doing and stand around doing nothing, so they do it too. I started doing it too. I've been doing this for 6 years. I can do the work assigned to me in a quarter of the time they expect. Doesn't mean I deserve to make 25% the money I should make for doing the same work. Now I do whatever on the clock. Go grocery shopping, go get lunch, take a nap, read a book, gossip, whatever. I don't know if our new management will realize the policy is stupid, never enforced for a reason, and literally cannot be enforced. But until then, they'll be paying the whole district to run the clock. Next story. Fine, I won't help you out then. I used to work permanent nights. On nights, we often had sickness at the last minute that no one was willing to come in and cover. So, we used to all help out one another. We didn't do it for the praise, or for additional money. There wasn't any. We did it because we were colleagues for years, and there was no one else. Inevitably, our work was taken for granted. The managers never thanked us for helping them out of the crap, but they also started to assume that we would cover everything. So they made less and less effort to arrange cover for absence, even planned absence they knew about in advance. On night, before work, I came into work and received a crappy email complaining about staff in our department using the computers of another department. Now, we had our own computers. The only time my department ever used the other department's computers was when we were covering their absence. The email chain showed the other department complaining about us to my manager, who sent out an email to all the night staff in my department saying, "From now on, do not use the other department's computers." I was fuming because, as I said, we only did it to help out and to stop the other department having to cover night staff at short notice. But I thought, fine, that's how it is. The very next night, the other department is short-staffed again. The supervisor on that shift asks me to cover their department. I say no, I can't. I have been told not to use their computers by my manager. The supervisor says, "Oh no, that's okay. You can use them." I say, "No, I can't. My manager told me not to, under any circumstances." So she gets her manager to call me, the same manager who complained about us, and say, "For this one shift, you can use our computers," as if she is doing me the favor. So I say, "No, I really can't. You are not my manager. I cannot defy my manager's instructions." Because they can't get my manager on the line that late at night. Another supervisor had to come in last minute and cover the shift. Next story. Celebrity Karen. Am I the butthole for intentionally being petty? So I am a builder. I primarily do high-end custom homes, 1-4 million price range. I am a female 34, which isn't common in this industry. But I really love what I do and I am fairly decent at what I do. In the past, my projects were primarily in rural areas on large ranches. But this particular project is in the middle of a large city, which means there are neighbors in close proximity, which is something new for me to deal with. The neighbors around this area are some of the worst, entitled, nasty people you can imagine. And one of them is a celebrity and his wife, we will call her B, who is also well known. I haven't personally had too much interaction with the couple. When B goes walking every morning, I smiled and waved, which I do with everyone because this is Texas, y'all, and she would always ignore me, which honestly is whatever. I'm not going to stop being kind because she is unfriendly. I honestly just started ignoring her. My job site has been really busy the last year, and most of my subs park alongside the street in front of the house. We all park on one side, facing the proper flow of traffic. If someone happens to park on the other side of the street, the neighbors call the cops or the city building official. I find this incredibly annoying and childish, but whatever. I have my guys move, and it's not a big deal. That being said, I stop by my project every morning to line my guys out and check on work that has been done, make my lists, etc. Most of the time I park on the very right side of B's property, which is just to the left of my project's construction drive, so my guys have parking in front of the project house. I am not there long, usually 2-3 hours. One day I was outside the house and a woman approached me. I wasn't sure who she was, but apparently it was B's maid. She informed me that I needed to move my car, which was on the correct side of the public street, or B was going to call the cops. I looked at her and said there was nothing wrong with me parking there. The maid then proceeded to tell me that B was going to charge me $500 a day for parking in front of her house. I laughed and told the maid I didn't know they were that hard up that they needed to charge a parking fee for using the public street. I went ahead and called the police to get ahead of the situation. He informed me there wasn't anything B could do about me parking in front of her property, which I knew, but I could get a ticket for parking within 15 feet of a fire hydrant, which is on the property line between my project and B's house. The office informed me I needed to be 15 feet away from the hydrant. I thanked him and he left. So I did end up moving my car. I took my measuring tape and measured out 15, which put my almost smack in front of B's house. I decided to park in front of her front sidewalk for 2 weeks after that. Every time she does something rude to me on the street, which happens more than I prefer, I park in front of her house just to piss her off. Honestly, if she had just come to me in the beginning and asked me nicely not to park in front of her house, I probably never would have again unless absolutely necessary. But the fact she was okay sending her help to threaten me really pissed me off. Am I the butthole for keeping this going? I don't like when people think that they are above you because they are well off. I know billionaires that have better manners than this chick. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share, and subscribe the channel. Our posts